Okay, let's look at the beginning of Farewell to Manzanar, and here's a little PDF to kind of look at the very beginning. Here's the foreword by Jeanne Wakatsuki Houston, who wrote the book, and her talking a little bit about why she wrote the book. And so if you scroll down in the beginning of your book, I believe on page, um, my book, it's page 13, Roman numerals, so XIII, all lower cases. She has a little chronology, and I want you to read through it because I want you to see what happened in the US that led to the internment of the Japanese American. And you already know a little bit of this based on the video Remembering Manzanar that you guys already watched. But here's a little bit more of a explicit timeline of the Japanese Americans in the US. And even starting in 1869, so shortly after the Civil War ended, the first Japanese person came to the US in Sacramento on the Pacific coast. And so there's a long history of Japanese Americans in the country. And really in the late 1800s with 1886, there was a flood of Japanese immigrants. And there were some headway made for these Japanese Americans to become actual citizens in America. And so she provides this timeline and especially starts getting more in detail with December 7th, obviously, from Pearl Harbor attacks, and with February 19th, 1942, a very important date. Almost every Japanese American knows about it. It's when Executive Order 9066 was signed by President Roosevelt, and that allowing the internment to really begin. And you look and you see that, in 1945, so well after, so 3.5 years later, that's when Manzanar closes, and finally Japanese Americans are able to go back to living life in normal. And so for your activity, think about why she offers those dates, and think about in your discussion questions what that does for you as a reader in understanding the story and how it kind of sets up for some of the things that we'll talk about, some of the themes, some of the characters, and some of the tones and the important events that might occur. Also, the terms used in this book is very important. And this is, if you know any Japanese Americans, these are very important terms that they're used, especially if they're more from the traditional family, like not immigrants from not too long ago. Issei, and these are all based on the Japanese numbers. I know there's some students who like to watch anime, and so you know some of the numbers. And so it relates to the generation in which the Japanese came. Issei is the first generation, the first ones to come, and that's the late 1800s, early 1900s. And then you get the next few generations, Nisei and Sansei, and you really get into, the children and grandchildren of the first immigrants. And so most of the people who went to Manzanar were Nisei and Sansei, and a few Issei who were getting very old. But so you have to realize that there were already 3 generations of Japanese people in America when this internment occurred. And a lot of them felt more roots to America than they did their homeland, than Japan. Some of them couldn't even speak Japanese. And so you can kind of see the frustration, the anguish, the confusion of a lot of these Japanese American citizens when they got sent to these relocation camps or the internment camps because they're American. And so, that just goes more to show the horrors of taking away someone's human rights based on fear and based on the relationships that the U.S. might have with other countries. And so think about these things, read them again, and answer the discussion questions to kind of get us into a frame of mind of what we're about to read.